Hello there. We'll take a look at the harvest prospects across the UK and a bit further afield in just a couple of minutes or so. But first, let's take a look further afield and see how things have been shaping up over the last 7 to 10 days or so around the world on the agriculture front. And starting off in southeast Canada, where we've had quite a lot of warm weather lately, some showers around as well, and that's helped to develop the corn and soybean growth here over recent weeks. Further south in Argentina, it's been quite dry, and that's been good conditions really for the seasonal fieldwork, which is helping to progress it towards its completion. Now, coming closer to home in western Russia, it's been pretty cool and wet for much of the summer really, but that has been good for the filling crops, for the summer filling crops here over the last week or so. And closer to home in northern Europe, well, it's been very dry the first part of this year. Soil moisture was well down across parts of northern France, the Low Countries for example, so additional rain here across central and northern Europe has been good for the crops and improving that soil moisture for the winter crop planting as we go further forward in time. In the UK, of course, making the news this week is the lack of cauliflowers around at the moment because of the severe weather we saw earlier this year. Primarily the rain. Most cauliflowers in the UK are grown in Lincolnshire, and during this 5-day spell of weather in mid-June, we saw 100 millimetres or more across Lincolnshire. You can see how much it stands out here on our radar estimated rainfall accumulation. So using the key here, you can see 70 plus is in the purple, and actually some parts of Lincolnshire saw 105, 110 millimetres just falling in a couple of days. That's twice its average, just falling in 1 or 2 days. And in half the month, the first half of the month, we saw 150 millimetres, so 3 times the monthly average. So a very wet start to June, not helping the cauliflower production here. And of course, a lot of them were washed away by the floodwaters, or they sat in flooded fields for extended period of time, so weren't usable. And even buying in crops from Europe, for example, they have been affected by the heat as well, hence the shortage we've got and the high prices for cauliflowers right now. Although we are assured things will improve later this month and more into September as well. Now, more recently, it's been very wet through much of August so far, low pressure often dominating jet stream well to the south. This map again from radar estimations show how much rain we've seen so far this month, so we're halfway through August now. And you can see again the purple's over 70 millimetres, covering much of northern and western Britain. And if you look closely, parts of Cumbria here getting close to 200 millimetres of rain on some high ground sites. Very wet considering we're only halfway through the month so far, so already above the average rainfall. Now compare that to parts of eastern England, East Anglia and South East here. We've seen much lower rainfall, below average rainfall for a good chunk of the month, and really until a couple of days ago we'd only seen 4 or 5 millimetres in many places, bar the odd shower or thunderstorm. But we have seen several rain events in the last few days that have helped top up the water amounts here as well. So we're gradually climbing up on the rainfall side of things at the moment across East Anglia and the South East. That may change though later next week and beyond into the final week of August. Now, quite often when we get unsettled weather, it's usually blamed on the jet stream, and rightly so in this case. It's to the south from where it should be for this time of the year. Very active too, as you can see by these bright colours here. Very strong, very active jet stream right across the southern half of the UK, driving areas of low pressure in off the Atlantic. So this is the picture on Saturday this weekend. Deep area of low pressure off towards the northwest, a number of isobars, so quite breezy, frequent showers, if not longer spells of rain across the north and the west of the UK. The driest conditions always towards the south and the east. Now this is the cold front that will have gone through Friday night, taking rain with it, so that would have cleared by Saturday, but we've got to keep an eye on it because we've got an active jet stream sitting across the southern half of the UK, across the top of this front, and just down here a little wave developing on that front, which through Saturday evening will start to run its way northeastwards, engaging with the jet stream, and may develop then some areas of rain that could push back into parts of southeast England on Saturday night just for a time. A bit of uncertainty, and to highlight that here I've picked 4 different computer models that we use in the office. This is all for around midnight on Saturday night, early hours of Sunday, and you can see the differences here and where the rain is across southeast England. So some of these models have rain pushing into Kent and Sussex, others have it well to the south across parts of France and Belgium, for example, and this model over here pushing that rain as far north as, say, the Wash for a time on Saturday night. So a little bit of uncertainty. This may chop and change some over the next 24 hours or so, but it's a potential for us, perhaps a longer spell of rain in the southeast on Saturday evening. Apart from that, though, low pressure continues to dominate through Sunday and into Monday. Here it is to the north of the UK. You can see again quite blustery conditions. Could see gusts of wind 50 miles an hour or so in western Scotland for a time through Saturday and Saturday night. There's our frontal wave to the south, and as I run this loop through the next few days, that low pressure continues to sit to the north of the UK Sunday and Monday. So frequent showers or longer spells of rain in the north and west, drier conditions towards the south, and then towards midweek, Wednesday here, we're starting to see a ridge building in from the Azores. So you'll notice by midweek, we start things to dry out, I think, across southern parts of the UK. Still, though, further rain and strong winds and showers pushing into the north and west, courtesy of low pressure, which continues to try and approach from the Atlantic. But there is a signal for pressure to build from the south towards the middle part of next week. It's after that things get rather complicated and rather uncertain. So to look at that in a little bit more detail, we'll take a look at our 15-day ensemble here. This is for the pressure in Birmingham, so taking a central point in the UK, and all of these different lines are different computer models of what they think the weather will do for pressure over the next 2 weeks or so. And you can say pretty good confidence really right the way through until about Wednesday, where the lines are all clustered together. So pressure dipping this weekend with that area of low pressure coming in, and then actually rising as we go through towards the middle part of next week. All of these models indicate that the pressure tends to peak around Wednesday time, which is when the high pressure starts to build in from the south. Thereafter, there is a fair bit of spread as we head towards the weekend, which of course is a bank holiday for most parts of the UK except Scotland. So we are seeing quite a large spread here. It could be that the high pressure hangs around into the weekend, or it could be that lower pressure starts to push back in again, which would bring the threat of some rain, showers and cooler conditions potentially as well. Now the average, the red line, does go on a downward trajectory through this period. So it does look like the most likely outcome, perhaps, is for slightly lower pressure to push in or develop later in the week and towards the following weekend. Now beyond that into the following week, there's not really a strong signal either way. There's some members going for high pressure building in. There are also some members going in for some fairly deep areas of low pressure to come in as well. So it's quite uncertain really for the last week of August. The average line doesn't give us too many indications. It just goes straight through the middle here. But it does actually indicate slightly higher pressure building in towards the very end of August, perhaps early part of September as well. So we'll have to see. But as I say, there's a lot of uncertainty beyond about Wednesday time of next week as to how things will evolve across the UK. Now, up until recently, most computer models had suggested high pressure would build in for the bank holiday weekend. So this is one scenario of the pattern in the upper atmosphere for that weekend coming up, 24th to 25th of August. And you can see big area, big ridge building in across the UK in the upper part of the atmosphere, which would allow high pressure then to build at the surface as well. And this trough here out towards the west. So this, in this situation, would give us probably quite a bit of dry weather across the UK, and it's quite a blocked looking pattern as well, so it probably lasts for quite some time, several days. We could enter into a fairly settled spell and perhaps turn a touch warmer depending on the position of the ridge as well. Now, recent data from the last 24 hours or so have started to back off that idea. Now, they still have the same pattern with this trough well to the west, then a ridge, and effectively another trough out towards the east. But the whole pattern has shifted further west. So this is the second scenario where the ridge is much further west over the central Atlantic. And actually instead we've got this trough sitting over the UK, which would promote low pressure, some showers or longer spells of rain, potentially some windy weather in there as well. So there is quite a bit of uncertainty about the bank holiday weekend in particular as to how things may evolve, and it's quite likely your app forecast or forecasts online may chop and change. They may differ from one site to another depending on which computer models they are using. So my advice at this stage is it's quite early to nail down the forecast for that particular weekend, and it will continue to change probably between now and then, so keep in tune with the latest forecast. This is scenario 2, of course, and we could easily go back to scenario 1 with high pressure building in. It's still too early really to say. So to keep up to date with the latest forecasts, why not give our forecasters a call? We have the forecast hotline operated from 6 in the morning to 6 in the evening each and every day, including the weekends, and our forecasters are constantly looking at all of this data coming in, and we can answer your questions and hopefully give you some more advice as to how things may be evolving for that weekend and indeed beyond into the final week of August as well. So to look at that on a European scale for the next 7 days or so, this is the mean jet stream pattern from this Thursday just gone, 15th of August, through until next Wednesday. So up until the point that we start to see that high pressure trying to build in from the south. So right now it's looking like a pretty active jet stream across the UK. I've drawn in these black arrows here to indicate the track of the jet stream, if you like, and you can see it's very active across the UK and northern France, hence why our weather is pretty unsettled this weekend. You'll notice it does split though. We get one arm going to the south, which could give us some quite wet conditions on the forward side of this jet across parts of southeast Europe, Ukraine for example, and we get another arm going off to the north with a slightly calmer condition in between. And when you look at the rainfall anomalies, that shows it up quite well as well. There's the unsettled weather across the far east of Europe down towards parts of Turkey, and also fairly wet conditions at times across much of northern Europe as well, helping those soil moisture deficits that we've had so far this year. As we head towards week 2, and this is from middle of next week through the weekend into the early part of the following week, the jet stream, notice, is much further to the north. It's also a lot weaker across the UK. So in theory, this will allow high pressure to build up from the south and, in theory, settle things down. But as I say, the position of that ridge may shift a little bit to the west, and if that were to happen, we then end up on the cooler side of the jet with a risk of some rain or showers. So not nailed on just yet, but this is the mean pattern from all of our ensemble members and how things are likely to look come week 2. We've got this big dip here. This is a big trough sitting across central parts of Europe. So again, on the forward side of that, you'd expect quite a bit of unsettled weather, rain, showers or thunderstorms to affect a good chunk of southern and parts of eastern Europe as well. And that's what's likely to happen, we think, to the second week of our monthly forecast. Now this graph here, or this map, shows the mean 500 millibar height anomaly, and that's basically about 3.5 miles above the ground and what the conditions are expected in the upper atmosphere, if you like. Now the reds here show higher than normal anomaly across the UK, indicating perhaps that higher pressure will try to build in from the southwest. But you can see this blue area here, this below average anomaly, indicating a trough and indicating potential for some unsettled conditions, particularly on the forward side, the eastern side of these areas of troughs in the upper part of the atmosphere. So when you look at the precip anomaly, you can see quite unsettled weather across central parts of Europe, drier than normal conditions across Western Europe under that potential ridge, and the far southeast drying up after the unsettled weather we'll see here over the next few days or so. Beyond that, into week 3, taking us into early September, notice we start to see those blue colours that were over Central Europe shifting to the west. So it's possible we may start to see areas of low pressure becoming more dominant nearer the Bay of Biscay, for example. But you can see how much red is showing up on these maps here. There's a lot of higher than normal pressure likely through into the early part of September across a good chunk of Europe. But you can see with that low pressure over Biscay, we might actually start to push some thundery rain up from France into southern parts of the UK. So generally speaking, the further northwest you go, it may be somewhat drier and more high pressure dominated here, while southern areas could be at risk of some thundery weather at times, maybe even something a little bit warmer coming out of the continent as well. And again, Turkey seeing quite a bit of rain perhaps through this week, but broadly speaking, there's not a very strong signal for above or below average rainfall across Europe for week 3. And indeed for week 4, not a great signal for southern areas, although there is a chance here we might see a little bit more of an active jet stream pushing through, so perhaps getting some more widespread above average rainfall developing across central, northern and northwestern parts of Europe as we go deeper on into September, but a little bit of uncertainty about that at this stage. So to summarise, the next 4 weeks or so across the UK is looking pretty unsettled at first for the next few days. There'll be some rain or showers, particularly in the northwest, and with northwesterly winds much of the time it will be fairly cool at night. In particular, daytime temperatures though should be close to average. Probably becoming drier across southern areas towards the weekend and perhaps into the following week, the last week of August. Temperatures, though, generally near normal, but if that high pressure does build for any length of time, given the sun, we could well see temperatures creeping up above average for a time, but no sign of any particularly big heat wave or anything like that affecting the UK. And as I say, there is a risk that we might get some thundery rain developing across southern areas moving up from France into early September, but it's a long way off. It's still subject to change. There is quite a bit of uncertainty in the forecast for sure. So that summarises the weather for the next 4 weeks or so. If you have any questions or feedback, we'd love to hear from you. As always, you can email them to info@weatherquest.co.uk, use the hashtag WQFarmingForecast on Twitter, or if you're watching us on YouTube, don't forget you can leave us a comment down below, and don't forget to hit the subscribe button.